guideline here, which we will be discussing, that is the Moose guideline. Okay, Moose guidelines are stands for meta-analysis and systematic review of observational studies. So the observational studies which are done, so for that, for those guidelines, the meta-analysis, for writing the meta-analysis and systematic reviews of those observational studies, the Moose guidelines are used. Okay, so then first is you have to write the topic. Okay, so like what is a title, and in that title you have to mention that whether it is a review or whether it is a meta-analysis or it is a systematic review. So you have to mention that in the title, and then abstract you have to write in a structured format. Okay, then introduction. So in the introduction you have to write about the clinical problem, like what is a clinical problem, or what is a clinical problem or about on which this observational studies were done, and what is the hypothesis behind doing this study. Then the statement of objective, that what is the objective, which includes the study of population, the condition of interest, and exposure or intervention, and the outcome considered. So you have to write this statement of objective, like what is the objective, which includes the study of, like includes the information about the study population on which the study is done, what is the condition of interest, and what is the exposure or intervention, and how the outcome was studied or how this outcome is considered. Then after that you have to write about the qualification of the searchers or researchers, whether they are librarians, investigators. So what is the qualification of these researchers, that you have to write. Search strategy, including time period included in the synthesis, and keywords. So what is the search strategy, and including the information about the time period which is included in the synthesis, and also you have to write the keywords. Then effort to include or available studies, including contact with authors. So what are the efforts, like the same way you can write about the study selection process and whether the authors are of the studies are in contact or not. Then what are the databases and the registries which are searched for getting the information, the software which is used, name and version of the software, and what are the special features of the software. So the software which is used for this purpose is Explosion. So example you can write, and then you have to write the name and version of the software and what are the features of those softwares. Then use of hand searching, so any reference list or any manual searching if it is done from the literature, so that also provided. Then list of citations located and those excluded, including justification. So the list of the citations which are included in the study and those which are excluded. So for that you can write the justification. Okay. Then method of addressing articles published in languages and other than English. So how you will address the articles which are not published in English, which are published in other languages, and then how the methods of handling the abstracts and unpublished studies. So only the abstracts, the studies for which only the abstract is available or the manuscript is only available, the articles are not published, they are in the publication phase. So how those abstracts and unpublished studies are handled. Then a description of any contact with the authors. So if the author is in contact with the authors of the other studies, like which are taken into account for writing this meta-analysis or systematic reviews. So if this contact authors are in contact, so that information is also shared. Then you have to describe that what is a study selection process. So what are the types of study design, like the randomized, like observational studies, so whether they are the cohort studies, cross-sectional studies. So what are the studies which are considered, so that you have to mention. Then relevance of appropriateness of studies gathered for assessing the hypothesis to be tested. Then how the studies which are gathered, they are appropriate and for assessing the hypothesis which is to be tested. Then rationale for the selection and coding of data. Example, sound clinical principles or convenience. So what is the rationale or background which is used for the selection or for the coding of data? Okay, so for the coding of the data, data coders are available. So what are the clinical principles or which are used for selection and coding the data? So that you have to mention. Then documentation of how data was classified and coded. So how the data was classified and how it is coded, so that you have to mention. Then assessment of the errors, confounding, like comparability of cases and controls in the case control studies. Then assessment of study quality, including blinding of quality assessors, stratification or regression. So then how the study quality is assessed, what are the quality assessment parameters which are considered, what are the statistical methods which are used for doing the analysis, and so that the sufficient details should be provided so that if required, that method can be replicated. Then the result should be mentioned. So in the result section, there should be a graph which individually summarizing individual study estimates and what is the overall estimate of the study. Tables can be given to give the descriptive information about each study which is included, what is the result of sensitivity testing, any subgroup analysis if it is planned, or any ancillary analysis if it is planned. So the information about that should also be provided. Then discussion section. So what are the strength and weakness of the study, and what are the potential biasness in the review process? So if there is any biasness, then that biasness should also be discussed. Okay, so this is how, like following Moore's guidelines, the meta-analysis or observation systematic reviews for observational studies can be written. Okay, understood? Is it clear?